If your child ever comes across a hidden Disney show, do not let them watch it. When my parents surprised our family with a trip to Disneyland, I was over the moon. I had watched so many videos about it online and knew all about it. So when we came across a secret that the park was hiding, I was excited. I just never could have imagined that there would be a horrifying secret behind it. Our first day started out as normal as you could imagine, but things slowly got worse. We had invited our neighbors, the Fangs, to come to the park with us, and just having migrated from Hong Kong, the Fangs seemed pleasant enough. We'd met them a total of 4 times, which says quite a bit for my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Fang have 2 kids, Lynn and Anne. Anne was 7 and Lynn was 2 months older than me. Upon our second meeting or so, I immediately struck up a friendship with the kids. We began to talk about TV, and soon I learned that the girls loved Disney as much as I did. We kept walking until we came across the first ride, the Mad Teacups. I immediately noticed how the name was different. It was normally just the Teacups, and it was weird of them to change the name so suddenly. When I looked at the people on the ride, I felt goosebumps rise on my arm. Not from the adrenaline of watching a fast-paced ride, but rather the strange feeling of dread I'd been feeling the entire day. It was at a peak at the moment. Every single person on the ride was unconscious, heads lolling in the direction that the Teacups would take them, and there were no screams or shouts of excitement that usually explode from an enjoyable ride. "I don't want to try that out," I blurted. I was getting tired of the calm front I was putting up for the Fangs. Mr. Fang looked at me curiously. "Do you have a fear of rides, dear?" "Just this one," I thought. I nodded. "I'm not feeling too well." Mrs. Fang bit her lip and looked concerned. "Oh no, should we be worried?" A little too late for that. I shook my head and tried to gulp my nausea away. "Okay, we have 2 options," Anne said. "We can go on the Raspy River Cruise or we can go watch the Disney Deadlock Evening Show." The river cruise sounded deadly, plus I didn't want to be traveling on water, what with my feelings of unease. I opted for the Disney Show, wondering what on earth the name indicated. Walking in, I knew to expect the worst. I knew it wouldn't be an average, happy-go-lucky, rekindle your childhood memories Disney movie fiesta. This entire experience was abnormal. I wasn't even sure if this was really happening at this point. The audience at the show was quiet, and I don't mean the low chatter, soft whispers kind of quiet. I mean dead silence, not one word. The only sound was the spectators shuffling into the theater. None of the Fung spoke either. They were silently looking around at other people, at the dark, empty stage. I did the same. I didn't feel like talking. Maybe I should just go to sleep. I snapped from my ephemeral slumber as something similar to classical music started to blare over the speakers. I don't know much about orchestras or old music, but it sounded like I was at the opera. The music was highly unfitting. It wasn't Disney in any sense. I knew every soundtrack in every movie, and I had never heard this before. It didn't sound Asian either. Shocked didn't even cut how I was feeling at this point, though. I was tired of being shocked. My thoughts were cut off when all my favorite Disney characters showed up on stage. Here were all the classical cartoon characters right in front of me, except they weren't. Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, and Daisy were wearing their clothes, but they had no color. Dressed in all black and white, they were miming their actions. The music got louder every second, but the story itself, however, was difficult to ignore. I can't remember everything, but it ran on the lines of Daisy wanting to stab Mickey and Mickey was trying to avoid her. On the side of the stage, it appeared as though Donald and Goofy were stabbing Minnie, and their clothes quickly became stained red. The music became sadder and sadder until it stopped when Daisy succeeded in killing Mickey. The actor who was wearing the suit cut through it and stabbed him in the stomach multiple times. The first row of the audience was engulfed in blood. It was at this point that I started screaming. I screamed until all the air in my lungs would allow it and my vision started to blur. The shock and horror was too much. Being away from my parents, being in an entirely new country with people I hadn't known for even a year, to having all my childhood dreams rattled in the span of a day, and watching people die right in front of me. It was too much. I knew I was going to pass out from the shock, from the pain, from the dread. From the moment I'd stepped into Disneyland, I'd felt unsafe. It was like I wasn't supposed to be here, like I'd been doing myself a great wrong. I thought that this nightmare was finally over, until I glanced over at everyone else. They were all staring deeply into the eyes of Daisy. I thought they were just as horrified as I was, but I was wrong. Something was different about them. Their eyes were bloodshot red and they looked possessed in a way. I began walking up to Anne when I was interrupted by a sharp stab through my chest as I was kicked to the floor. I turned my head to see Daisy standing there, holding the same knife she used to kill Mickey. "You're different from the others," she said, as she raised her knife and quickly pushed it into my chest.